Hey, good morning, Uncle Lou here. Yep, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching. We're gonna do my updated top 10 today. Normally I do that on Fridays. I've been needing to probably move that back to earlier in the week for a while, and with Georgia having an off week this week, it seems like a good time to do it. So maybe we'll keep it on Tuesdays from now on. Well, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, updated top 10 today. Big shakeup in the top 10 too. Lots of losses last week. Of course, Clemson lost. Auburn lost. Both Washington teams lost. So big shakeup in the top 10, and that's what we're going to do today. But before I get to that top 10, if you missed yesterday's video, I gave a jersey away to any team you wanted. So I want to congratulate, and I don't want to... It was an email contest. You had to email me, so a lot of emails have people's real names, and I don't want to give out anyone's real name. Cam L, you'll know who you are if you hear that. You won. I emailed you back right away that you won, but I haven't heard from you since. So obviously, I need to know what team. I mean, I could assume you're a Georgia fan, but it didn't say in the email. So anyway, I emailed you back. I need to know what team, of course, and what size. But anyway, point is, just don't do that down here in the comment section. Just email me. You have the email address. Just email me and we'll handle it. I'll give him a few days. If for some reason he disappears off the face of the earth, then we'll go on to the second person, which I've already emailed that person as well. And we're going to do another contest today during this video, but I'm not going to tell you what the contest is or when I'm going to say it, but I'll say it at some point during this video. So anyway, with only a little bit more ado, let's get right into the top 10 here. Now, number 10 in every poll I've done this year has been the Washington Huskies, and I've explained why ad infinitum. I didn't think they were a good team. I didn't think they were deserving to be in the top 10, really. But they made the playoff last year, won the Pac-12, and were undefeated. So I had them at 10 every single week. I told you they would remain at 10 until they either lost a game or made the college football playoff. Well, they lost a game. They looked pitiful. No offense at all. Missed several field goals. Didn't score any touchdowns, and got beat by a terrible Arizona State team. Arizona State was 3-3, so not exactly a world beater. You go on the road down there and lose. That's unacceptable. So obviously Washington no longer in the top 10. There are several one-loss teams in the top 10 this week, but they all have either better losses or more impressive wins, or both, than Washington, and just overall are a better team. So don't even try to argue with me that Washington should be in the top 10. They shouldn't, and they're not either. Also in 2 and as well. Number 10. Gators, Clemson, fallen a long way. What were they? Number 1 in my poll? I think they were number 1 in my poll the last few weeks. Unexplainable loss to Syracuse. Now, weird things do happen in these Thursday and Friday night games, especially for highly ranked teams who are having to play on the road. If I was the ACC, I would fire your commissioner for forcing y'all to play these Friday night games. If you don't know, the ACC signed a deal with ESPN guaranteeing that every ACC team would play at least one Friday night game this season and come back to bite Clemson in the butt. Now, I'm not taking a shot at Syracuse there. I'm not saying Syracuse would have lost if the game would have been played on Saturday. I'm just saying, go back and look at these Thursday and Friday night games. Weird things like this tend to happen. So that is what it is. I've been over the Clemson situation. Dabo should be ashamed of himself playing that quarterback, putting winning ahead of player safety. That Kelly Bryant, whatever his name is, quarterback for Clemson, never should have been on the field Friday night. He couldn't. He could hardly walk, much less run, and he's a running quarterback. He never should have been out there. A terrible, terrible decision by Dabo to play him. But anyway, they drop all the way down to number 10 with a loss to Syracuse. They have their bye week coming up. Offensively, they just look terrible with the other guy in there. I mean, they didn't look much better with Brian in there against Syracuse, but you know, they looked awful with the replacement in there. They have a bye week, so hopefully they can get their starter back. He had the bum ankle coming into the game, and then of course suffered the concussion in the Syracuse game. So we'll sort of wait and see on that. These first 4 or 5 teams are all going to be one-loss teams. And I'll do my best to explain why each one-loss team is ahead or behind another one-loss team as we go through them. That was a pretty bad loss for Clemson, which has them down to number 10. Now Clemson can climb higher, if they went out the rest of the way. Hell, Clemson lost a game last year that they shouldn't have lost to Pitt and won the national title. So Clemson not necessarily out of it, but just hasn't looked like the same team as last year the last couple of weeks. Number 9, Ohio State. Finally moving them back into the top 10. Unexplainable loss again, in my opinion, to Oklahoma at home, and it wasn't a close game. I mean, you got blown out. That's what got you out of the top 10 to start with. What'd you do this week? Well, you beat Nebraska 56-14. Now you're coming up on your bye week, so congratulations, you beat the brakes off Nebraska. My problem with Ohio State is inconsistency. They didn't look good against Indiana week 1. They have the loss to Oklahoma. They beat other teams by 30 and 40 points, but they're up and down. You couple that with the fact that they made the playoffs last year when they shouldn't have. Ohio State was given the benefit of the doubt last year and didn't show up. Didn't even show up. Didn't even score a point in the playoff game. I find it hard to believe that any playoff committee is going to put Ohio State back in a playoff this year with a loss like they had at home to Oklahoma. I find that extremely hard to believe. And if for some reason they do, I'm going to raise holy hell. I can promise you that. They will never, I repeat, never be in my top 4. I don't care. They could win the rest of their games this year 100-0. They will not be in the UNCLELOU top 4. Now, if they end up making the college football playoff, at that point, my poll obviously doesn't matter. We're talking about playoffs then at that point, down to 4 teams. But if you're an Ohio State fan, don't click on these top 10 videos every week that I do, expecting to see Ohio State anywhere near the top 4. Not happening. Number 8, Oklahoma. Had to put Oklahoma ahead of Ohio State. Head-to-head has to mean something, in my opinion. There is no fairer way to compare teams than head-to-head. There is no other fair... I mean, that's the fairest way to do it. And these two teams played, and it wasn't close. On top of that, Oklahoma... Not only did Oklahoma beat them, and beat them bad, they beat them at Ohio State. I don't understand. The AP poll has Ohio State ahead of Oklahoma, and it's that kind of idiocy that pisses people off about the AP poll and the coaches poll and all this kind of stuff. This just makes no sense. You've got two, really, really good teams, each with one loss, but one team beat the other. They're better. So anyway, Oklahoma, you're ahead of Ohio State at 8. Now, you did not look good again this week, beating a terrible Texas team 29-24. I gave you a little bit of the benefit of the doubt there because that is a rivalry game, and sometimes weird things happen in rivalry games. They say you could throw the record out in a rivalry game is what they say. And while I don't necessarily agree with that 100%, there is a little bit of truth to that, I think. You struggled with Texas, but you did get the W, 29-24. You play at Kansas State this week. That should be no problem. I expect a blowout from Oklahoma in that one. Number 7. I have Oklahoma State. Now, people are going to argue that Ohio State and Oklahoma are better teams than Oklahoma State. And none of these 3 teams have played each other. So I've got to look for other ways to separate these 3 teams, Ohio State, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State, to try to determine which one should be ranked where. So I'll do my best to do that. Oklahoma State, like Oklahoma and Ohio State, has 1 loss. Okay? I think Oklahoma State's loss is better than Ohio State or Oklahoma's loss. They lost to an undefeated TCU team by, 10 or 11 points, something like that. That's pretty much it. Now, TCU and Oklahoma will play. Not Ohio State, but TCU and Oklahoma will play. The loser of that game is pretty much done for the year, as far as anything is concerned. Big 12 title or playoff hopes will be gone, in my opinion, when Oklahoma State and Oklahoma play. the loser of that game is done. You can't have 2 losses in a crappy Big 12 and expect really to go anywhere in the postseason. So that's why Oklahoma State is where they are. They go out and they play Baylor this past weekend. They beat them 59-16. So as far as I know, I think Baylor is winless against Karma this year. So Karma undefeated. Baylor, I think 0-6. They play at Texas this week. So if you think Oklahoma should be ahead of Oklahoma State, ask yourself this. Is Oklahoma State beating Texas by 5 points? No. Most likely beating them by 2 or 3 scores would be my guess. If I'm wrong, we'll rearrange some of these next week. But that's where they're sitting right now, and that's my logic for doing it. So you can cry or you can agree, but that's the order. So you got Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. Number 6, the last one-loss team in the poll. The top 5 are all undefeated. Number 6, in my opinion, the best loss of any team in America, as far as one-loss teams are concerned, Notre Dame, with a 1-point loss to UGA, which no matter what poll you look at, is a top 3 or 4 team. That's better than Oklahoma State's loss to TCU because it was a closer loss. Oklahoma State lost by 10 or 11 points. Notre Dame lost by 1 point. Oklahoma got beat by a terrible Iowa State team. That's not a good loss. Ohio State got blown out by Oklahoma. So that's not a good loss. Clemson lost to a terrible Syracuse team. That's not a good loss. Notre Dame has the best loss of any one-loss team in America, and for that reason, they're number 6 in the UNCLELOU poll. They play Southern Cal this week. So if you think Notre Dame's overrated and still a 4-win team like they were last year, then you can cross your fingers and hope that Southern Cal beats them. I'm not going to make a prediction on that game right now. I'm going to do a prediction video later in the week, and I'll cover that game at that time in detail. So Notre Dame number 6. All right, let's stop the video right here and get to today's contest before we get on with the last half of the top 10 here. For today's contest, we're not going to do the email. We're going to do something different. Today we will give away an Uncle Lou LouTube shirt. This one right here. Yeah. Okay, so going to give that away. And let's see. To do this one, we'll do the first person to tweet me at Crazy Uncle Lou. I want a LouTube shirt. So tweet at Crazy Uncle Lou. I want a LouTube shirt. First one to tweet me that will win the shirt. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Crazy Uncle Lou. And tweet me at Crazy Uncle Lou. I want a LouTube shirt. First one to tweet me that, I'll direct message you on Twitter and get you squared away. Back to the top 10 poll. So now top 5 all undefeated. Number 5, Wisconsin. Now I will openly admit there are probably teams, at least, well, there are probably some teams ranked under Wisconsin, behind Wisconsin, ranked, in other words, ranked worse than Wisconsin. It would probably beat Wisconsin on a neutral field. But you're a Power 5 team and you're undefeated halfway through the season. Hard to justify not giving Wisconsin a high ranking. So they're coming in for me at number 5. I'm not sold on their offense. I'm not sure. I mean, they're not quite as bad as Michigan as far as offense goes. I just don't think they have enough offense to beat really anyone ahead of them. On this list, and I think number 5 is probably a fair spot to put Wisconsin right now, undefeated in the Big Ten right now. They beat Purdue 17-9, not very impressive. They play Maryland this week, a team they should dominate. We'll see what happens, but right now Wisconsin's sitting at number 5 in the Uncle Lou poll. Number 4, TCU. TCU has a good win against Oklahoma State. They're undefeated. They're in a major Power 5 conference, so hard to argue that they shouldn't be somewhere in the top 4 or 5 at least. I do not think they're an elite team with any sort of national title chances. It's possible they could make the playoff if they run the table in the Big 12, but I can't see them winning even in the first round of the playoff. I just can't see it. They do have a better defense than most teams in the Big 12, but I do not think it's an elite defense by any stretch of the imagination. Their offense is Their offense is probably not quite as good as some of the others in the Big 12. Their defense probably a little better. It's probably the best way to describe TCU. I think they're a good team. I think they're a really good team who could beat a lot of teams in the top 10. But I think TCU's best bet, I think, ceiling this year is to go undefeated, win the Big 12, and lose in the first round of the playoff. Just my opinion. And they've still got some tough games to go. They've got to play Oklahoma. And then they'll probably have to play another tough game in the Big 12 title game. We'll see how this plays out. Number 3, Penn State, highest ranked Big 10 team. Only undefeated Big 10 team other than Wisconsin. Saquon Barkley, I still think is the Heisman favorite. I really like him. All-purpose yards through the roof. Great running back. A good quarterback. Good defense. What'd they do this week? They were off. Find out more about them next week. They play Michigan at home. They should win that game. Michigan, elite defense, absolutely no offense at all. I mean, Michigan is just not very good. They barely beat, was it Indiana or something this past week? Is that right? Lost to Michigan State a couple of weeks ago. Not really who we thought they were. Penn State, though, is a legitimate threat to make the playoff this year. They were in the Rose Bowl last year along with Southern Cal. Got a lot of pieces back. I like their coach. It's going to get tough for them here over the next couple of weeks. You know, they're going to play Michigan. They got Ohio State coming up. So we'll see how they navigate this next stretch of games here. But right now, I got them sitting number 3 in the UNCLELOU poll. 2 teams left. Both in the SEC. Be sure and tell me how bad the SEC is, though. Yeah. Coming in at number 2 this week in the UNCLELOU poll. UGA. Bama number 1. Why? Well, I think Georgia has a more impressive win than anything Alabama has. Georgia has a win over Notre Dame. Alabama's best win is what, Texas A&M, or maybe don't even say Florida State. They're a 2-win team. They're terrible. Now, is it Bama's fault the other teams are terrible? No. UGA's played some terrible teams too. Bama's beating everybody by 30, 40, 50 points. UGA's beating everybody by 30, 40, 50 points. But I told you last week, just because I put somebody somewhere doesn't mean they stay there, and this poll will change from week to week. Alabama had a more impressive win, in my opinion, this past weekend than Georgia did. Both teams dominated. Georgia won by 25 points against the worst team in the East. Alabama won by 32 points against the worst team in the West, Arkansas. So I moved them up to number 1, coupled with Clemson's loss and Penn State being off. The only 2 teams I had to evaluate this week were UGA and Bama. I'm not disappointed in the way UGA played. I'm not concerned. I would rather we didn't give up 28 points to Mizzou, but let's be real. 14 of those points happened on 2 60-yard bombs. That was half their passing yards on those 2 plays right there. So I'm not worried or concerned about UGA's defense, but the bottom line is we won against the worst team in the East by 25. Bama won against the worst team in the West by 32. And if I'm going to be fair and do what I say I'm going to do on here, and change these polls up every week based on what have you done for me lately, then in my opinion, Alabama deserves to be number 1 this week, with Georgia right behind them at number 2. Georgia's off this week. Alabama plays Tennessee. So, hey, another common opponent for Georgia and Alabama. Alabama had a little bit more impressive victory over Vanderbilt than UGA did. And, of course, UGA shut out Tennessee 41-0. So we'll see what Bama does against Tennessee this week. We'll see how they stack up compared to what UGA did to them. UGA also shut Tennessee out on the road. Bama gets Tennessee at home. We'll see. Be hard for me to move UGA ahead of Bama next week, I think, since we're off this week. But in the following week, we play Florida. So, I mean, I'm getting way ahead now. But anyway, you get the point. These things are going to go up and down and move around. So, that's just the way it is. So, anyway, there's your top 10 poll. I hope everyone has a great day and an even better morning. Thank you.